Well, I'm kind of naturally optimistic, so that's a good place to start. You get people always put words in your mouth. You get this like doom and gloom reputation. I'm not a doom and gloomer, but I am an analyst. And as an analyst, you're not doing your job if you don't tell people what's happening, like what's actually happening, get the right data, get the right models, which is as important, and just be candid about what's going on. So I try to do that. If the news isn't good, it's not because I'm not an optimist. It's just because I'm not going to, you know, fake you out. But to your point, Brian, one of my favorite stories about how you can make money in any state of the world, certainly preserve wealth. You can do that. But how can you make money? There was a guy, I've written about this before, but his name was Hugo Stinnes. Who's Hugo Stinnes? Well, he was an industrialist in the early 1920s in Weimar, Germany. And he saw the hyperinflation coming, but long before it hit. So he went out and borrowed massive amounts of Reichsmarks, which was the currency at the time. And he bought industrial assets. He bought shipping lines, he bought railroads, he bought coal, mines, et cetera. So then the inflation comes along, the hyperinflation. It wasn't even like $1 trillion to one. It was like they were sweeping it down the sewers at the end. And he paid the debts back. I would say pennies on the dollar, but it wasn't even that. It was like he paid all his debts back and kept the assets. And he was the richest man in Germany because he borrowed money. And if you're the debtor and the money becomes worthless, you don't owe any money. Here's a penny here, I'll pay you back. But he kept the assets, which retained their value, and became the richest man in Germany. And his nickname, I don't speak German, but I'll try, was Inflationskönig, which means the inflation king. So there's a guy who, in the worst hyperinflation of any industrial economy in history, became the richest man in Germany by anticipating it and doing the right trade. My other favorite story, Joseph P. Kennedy, father of President John F. Kennedy, saw the crash coming in 1929, and he just shorted his way all the way through. He just shorted it, made a fortune, became one of the richest men in the United States in the early, after the 1929 crash, early 1930s. And that family fortune and dynasty are still going strong. So here you have, if you said, gee, what are the two worst economic disasters of the 20th century? Most people would say, well, the Weimar hyperinflation and the 1929 crash. Yeah, but here's two guys who became the richest guys in their countries because they saw it coming and did the right trade. So what I say to investors and savers is you got to see this stuff coming and do the right trade.
Lastly, just wanted to finish out on your new book, Sold Out. I know it's coming out, I think, a little bit later this year. You're going deep into here. It's a supply chain, kind of 1.0 and what you call 2.0. Why do people need to understand what's happening here?
Well, I make the point, the supply chain as we know it, I call it supply chain 1.0. I date from 1989, fall of the Berlin Wall, and the rise of globalization, to 2019, just prior to the pandemic. So a 30-year period. And I know the guy who built it, and he said to me, he said, Jim, you got to understand, it took us 30 years to build this, and we blew it up in 3 years. It's not coming back, not soon. It'll take 5 or 10 years to rebuild, but this is not a flavor of the month. This is not going away soon. This problem is not going away soon. I also make the point in my book that there's nothing new about supply chains, and I use an example of the Uluburun wreck in Turkey, which was a Bronze Age shipwreck, but it was discovered by a diver by accident in the 80s, and they excavate underwater archaeology and excavation, and they discovered goods from amber from the Baltic Sea to gold from Sudan to swords and cedar from the Levant, Lebanon, and present-day Syria, to other goods from Mycenae, and they were all on the vessel. So obviously they were doing a counterclockwise trade route, and things were being consigned and dropped off and sold and picked up all along the way. So, but if you do Baltic Sea to Sudan and then Iran to Spain, it's like 5 million square miles. So you had a supply chain in the Bronze Age, you always have. What's new was supply chain science. It was the combination of computing power, which came along, and better models and a quest for efficiency that gave rise to the modern supply chain. That has now broken down. I explain why in depth. There will be a new supply chain, because going back to the Bronze Age example, there's always one, but is it efficient? How does it work? What does it look like? And there are what I call supply chain 2.0 will be, it goes by different names. Macron calls it, it's not convergence, it's, Johnny Yellen calls it friendshoring, onshoring, collegium, it goes by different names. But the idea is we'll build supply chains, but only with our friends. There's China will be out. Russia, I'd like to see included, but they're going to be out, obviously. So this will be the Western democracies, the EU, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, some others, and then other friends. Maybe there's some middle states who join in. Brazil, India, you might want to put in that category, et cetera. And they'll trade with each other, but they won't rely on China. They won't trade with China or friends of China, or at least for the time being with Russia. So the supply chains are going to be rebuilt. It'll take 5 years at least. They'll be around, but all of a sudden you'll find semiconductors are made in the United States, and the soybeans from Brazil are going to, India, and mining output from Australia is coming to Europe, but China's going to be out of the loop, and China and others. So, but this is going to take years to build, and it's going to be a rough road between here and there.
Wow. All right, looking forward to that book coming out. And again, I highly recommend people watching the separate video, Countdown to Crisis. There's a link below, but it goes deeper on everything you talked about now and how people can position themselves to profit from this crash in 2022. Jim, you seem like you're in more demand than ever for your ideas, which is incredible. You seem like you're in the best form of your life that I can see. What are the next 5 years like for you? Is it more research, more of these interesting ideas? Are you going to be taking other time to do fun things as well with your life, or what does that look like?
Well, I try to do fun things along the way. My sports are mountain climbing, skiing, love sailing. I haven't sailed as much in recent years, but I have a lot over the years. So, I can't tell my wife I got my eye on a new boat, but she'll, if I make it a birthday present, maybe that works. So, and, I enjoy sports and family, family comes first. So, but in terms of what I'm doing, it's funny, you think Sold Out, which is coming out in November or December in the UK, will be my 7th book. You're like, hey, Jim, you wrote 7 books. Isn't that enough? It's like, I keep getting new ideas. So I actually have a pipeline of maybe 3 more books. Got to talk to my publisher and work that out. But I'll probably keep writing. I enjoy it. It's hard work. I don't. People say, Jim, how do you write books? I said, just keep writing. But it is hard work. But I like doing it. So probably do that. My newsletters are growing. Strategic Intelligence is kind of the flagship. I got 4 or 5 the more specialized newsletters. They're more expensive, but people like them because we have recommendations. So kind of writing, traveling, public speaking, love doing interviews like this and opportunities like this. So I'll probably keep going, but do try to enjoy life along the way. I think the idea that, I'm going to work really hard and then retire and then I'll start to enjoy life. I don't adopt that model. I don't have a concept of retirement. I do work hard, but I don't believe in deferring, everything. You need to do that to stay fresh and be good at your day job.
Hey, do you want to profit from crypto? Then join my DeFi Academy. The Crypto DeFi Academy will help you create generational wealth. But don't take my word for it. Listen to my students.
When I first got into crypto, I remember thinking to myself, I need to learn more. Brian Rose, learning crypto, learning DeFi, gotta do it.
I am so grateful that I jumped in and did this. I had to break through some limiting beliefs that I can do this, that I can afford this, that I can be in this.
It challenges the things that are deeply rooted within us.
Joining DeFi Academy has been one of the best decisions I have made on my blockchain journey.
This course was a life changer, a game changer, a huge eye-opener, coming from knowing practically nothing at the speed of the learning over 4 weeks was just fantastic.
The information you provided in this class was invaluable.
I feel far more confident in my next steps. You took complex concepts and made them easier to understand.
What's different than so many other ones is it just doesn't tell you what to do. It actually makes you do it.
This is for people who are serious about becoming traders. This is the way it should be done.
I realized from this learning experience again that it is not about what you learn, but about who you learn it from.
The energy was insane. I've never experienced such incredible energy on a live call. Brian Rose, you are a legend, my friend.
It's the only thing in the market where you can get all information and learn everything what you need to know.
Everything is so clear and so well done, and I'm just forever grateful for this program.
It made me feel so much more confident about crypto than I did before.
I did not anticipate how passionate I was going to become about it.
It's of course been like a big learning experience for me, not just in the crypto space, but just in overall balance of life.
What I've learned is, how to take ownership, of my life in a way that I really hadn't before.
Yeah, you can't put a price on that, really.
I would recommend it to anybody, top notch.
Excellence does not come cheap. So if you want excellence, you got to pay for it, but it's so worth it.
Pull the trigger. That's what this course is about.
You're not going to regret it, really. It's amazing.
Thank you, Brian and team.
So what are you waiting for? Crypto is happening now. Click the link below, submit your application, and let me mentor you on how to create generational wealth and build the decentralized financial infrastructure of the future.